Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing an incredibly powerful Pokemon in the Great League Summer Cup that helped me climb from the 2200s nearly up to 2400 ELO. That Pokemon is Shadow Girafarig with Confusion, which isn't even ranked in the top 100 for the Cup on PvPoke. For the charge moves, I ran Psychic Fangs and Trailblaze, and this thing provides insane offensive pressure and can just run through teams. For the first couple battles, I did have it on Thunderbolt, quickly realized Thunderbolt is useless, switched to Trailblaze, and did not look back. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. Leading into the first match, Shadow Girafarig vs Shadow Quagsire. In neutral or lost leads, I'm typically going to farm up a Confusion and switch out. Energy management is so important to success on Shadow Girafarig, so having an energy head start is very valuable. They're going to go for a Mud Bomb and send in their own Vigoroth. I'm going to fire off the Body Slam before they can make it to theirs. They're going to be forced to throw energy here, and now I have a choice to make. Do I want to commit the shield? I decide no. I'm going to let this go, and I'm just going to send in the Girafarig. Girafarig is going to be shielding up here as they make it to the Body Slam, and even though I'm down a shield, I do leave with a massive amount of energy. Opponent can send back in the Quagsire. I build up to the Trailblaze, and I'm going for the Thunderbolt. And in this moment, this is when I realized, oh, Thunderbolt is pretty useless, so there's not really a reason to use it. So they end up no shielding the Psychic Fangs. I switch into the Greedent as they fire off the Mud Bomb, and in the back, it's Charjabug. Now they have a full health Charjabug, and they're up a shield, but watch this. This Charjabug is not going to have a terrific day. They can fire off the X-Scissor, but it's not going to be enough to KO the Greedent. Greedent, so spammy, able to fire off the Body Slam, and the opponent still has yet to use a shield in the match, is finally going to use one here. Greedent makes a last-second Body Slam. That is absolutely terrific. Opponent is going to let that through, and watch Confusion Shadow Girafarig go to work. I'm going to be committing the shield as they go for the X-Scissor. They try to get to X-Scissor number 2. They get KO'd. In comes the Shadow Quagsire. Quag gets farmed down as well. The offensive pressure is too much, and we're able to take the win. We've got another Mudboy on the lead in the next match, Shadow Girafarig vs Whiscash. This time, I'm going to do 2 Confusions and then switch into the Vigoroth because Whiscash is way worse pacing than Quagsire. They go for the Scald. They're sending in a Toxapex. Toxapex, highly effective at neutralizing energy from Vigoroth. Vigoroth is going to start spamming out these Body Slams, but Toxapex is unfazed. I'm going to farm up to the back-to-back Body Slams, but I realize that the Poison Jab is going to KO. Since I don't get both moves, I go for the Rock Slide, since it will do slightly more damage. And now, instead of sending in Girafarig, I'm bringing in Greedent. This is a pretty standard, 2-tank strategy, where we have the Vigoroth and the Greedent in the back, and we're just using those to absorb hits. So they can fire off multiple charge attacks, and now I can send in Girafarig. Girafarig is going to get a massive farm down, exiting with a ton of energy. In comes Charjabug, and let's watch Shadow Girafarig go to work. Girafarig is going to start spamming out these Psychic Fangs. They switch out to reset the debuff. In comes the Whiscash, and Whiscash is going to be met with another Psychic Fangs. This could be a Trailblaze as well, and they still don't shield it. I believe it's after this battle I said, you know what? I'm switching to Trailblaze, and Trailblaze honestly worked so much better. Girafarig gets the full farm down. I'm 1 away from back-to-back Psychic Fangs. So if I live the Bolt Switch and get the Confusion, I can get the move, but unfortunately, I don't live it. I should have just switched into the Greedent because they're now at back-to-back X-Scissors, so unfortunately, this game is going to be a loss. Had I just switched into the Greedent, I could have gotten both moves off, and then put myself in a position where the worst thing that could happen is a tie, but I stay in thinking I could survive the Volt Switch, but I could not, and unfortunately the game ends in a loss. Moving to the next match, we see our 3rd Mudboy lead in a row, leading into the Shadow Quagsire, but this time I have Trailblaze. I try and do 1 Confusion and switch. The game unfortunately frame drops, so it makes you do 2 Confusions and switch, but either way, they still throw energy, and they're going to send in Tentacruel. This is very fine. Tentacruel is going to have to throw energy here, because if they don't, I can make 3 Body Slams and force a shield. I'm going to fire off the Slam, because this will do some very nice damage. Now the question will be, will they fire off energy, or will they commit to the farm down? They commit to the farm down, and that's going to cost them. Now they have to shield or they lose all this energy. They will shield, but I'm not sending in the Glassy Girafarig. There's absolutely no chance. I'm sending in the Greedent because Greedent is our damage sponge. We're able to absorb energy with the Greedent. They try and go for charge attack priority, but now if I want to, I can potentially try and snipe with a Confusion from the Girafarig, and I do, but they're going to switch into the Quagsire. Quagsire will go for the Aqua Tail. I commit the shield. At this point, I build up to the Trailblaze, but I'm thinking I can just shield and farm down. And Girafarig up this much energy is very, very scary to deal with in this cup. So Quagsire is out of the way. Let's see what they want to do. We know that they have the 1 HP on that Tentacruel. In the back, it's going to be Alolan Marowak. And Alolan Marowak does not resist Confusion. I'm going to be at 2 more Psychic Fangs. I'm expecting my opponent to switch out and try and catch here. So I'm going to switch into the Greedent. I don't get the catch, but I do get the Trailblaze. Trailblaze is going to be hitting onto their -2 defense. It's a simul KO. They have a move, but I have a move with the Girafarig, and Girafarig will win charge attack priority. Psychic Fangs KOs Alolan Marowak, and we're able to take the win. Moving to the next match, Shadow Girafarig versus Pidgeot. This lead is fine even without Thunderbolt, because you're just going to go straight Psychic Fangs. Since this is the non-Shadow Pidgeot, I'm expecting Feather Dance and Brave Bird. If it's Shadow, I always expect to see Aerial Ace. Feather Dance is a truly terrible move, so I'm just going to call that it's a Feather Dance. They don't go for the Brave Bird. I tank that no problem. They send in the Shadow Quagsire, and I get to respond with the bulky Greedent. And Greedent can do what it does best, absorbing energy no problem, and firing off the Trailblaze. Trailblaze will hit for double super effective damage. How badly does the opponent want to preserve this Quagsire? I tank 2 Aqua Tails, no problem. Going for the Trailblaze. Trailblaze, no shielded, massive damage. We get a Mudshot farm down. In comes Pidgeot. I'm going to overfarm and go for the Body Slam. They're forced to make a decision. Do they want to protect the low health Pidgeot? The answer is no. They're letting it go. It's Swampert in the back. I'm going to bank energy and watch Girafarig go. No one wants to shield the first Psychic Fangs, but if you don't, Girafarig is just farming you down. Look at the confusions. Swampert, nothing it can do, and the opponent will resign the match. A battle of shadows in the next match, Shadow Girafarig versus Shadow Kingdra. I throw a Confusion, safe switch to the Vigoroth, but the opponent makes a beautiful catch, catching that Body Slam onto Toxapex. Toxapex answering the Vigoroth safe switch is basically the worst case scenario in this cup. Even if they send out a ghost type like Jellicent, that's actually super fine as the Vigoroth. Vigoroth can play out of that, but Toxapex is basically the only Pokemon in the format that can just really effectively shut down Vigoroth energy. I will overfarm quite a bit. I play to the charge attack priority tie as the opponent would have to go for the Brine before I get 2 more Body Slams. So the Brine, I'm not going to shield. I'm now going to be sending in the Greedent and just looking for farm. They can fire off the Sludge Wave. That's very, very okay. And then I'm actually going to look to try and snipe with the Girafarig. So I switch into the Girafarig, but it's a simultaneous switch, Girafarig into Kingdra. That's a really great read by my opponent, understanding that I would probably switch in the Girafarig, and they aggressively switch into the Kingdra. I go for the Psychic Fangs that will pick up the KO. What is that final Pokemon in the back? The Toxapex is too low to do any meaningful damage. Unfortunately for me, it's going to be Charjabug, and this is just not a winnable game anymore. Charjabug will be hit with the Psychic Fangs. They will commit the shield. Charjabug is going to exit with quite a lot of energy, but at this point, the Greedent is just too low. The X-Scissor can connect. I know they can get to another one, and they wait the turn and get the catch onto the Toxapex. That's absolutely beautifully played by my opponent. My goodness. And since they reset the debuff, this Body Slam won't even KO anymore. But yeah, honestly, opponent just played very well here. I don't feel like it was the team's fault. I just got outplayed. So GG's to my opponent. Shadow Girafarig versus Lantern in the next match. This is very okay. It's Water Gun Lantern. I'm going to farm up to the Psychic Fangs and switch into the Vigoroth. In comes Shadow Poliwrath, and this is so fine. I'll fire off the Body Slam. They have to throw a move here. If they overfarm, I can force a shield. And this opponent accidentally plays to a CMP tie that they do not win. The Body Slam gets shielded. They are forced to throw their move, and this is the best case scenario for me. Opponent had to throw one earlier, as now I can send in the Girafarig. Girafarig is going to be very close to a Trailblaze, and look at this. This is why we have Trailblaze for all the water types. Trailblaze connects. That's way too much damage under the Lantern, and now they're going to have to deal with boosted Psychic Fangs in the back. I shield the Surf. Opponent does not want to play anymore, and they resign the match. Shadow Girafarig versus Shadow Quagsire. We've seen this lead before. We know what to do. Throw the confusion, safe switch into Vigoroth. Opponent is going to fire off Aqua Tail. Speaking of Vigoroth, I will say Vigoroth leads are probably the thing that this team struggles with the most. The vast majority of the time, I see Vigoroth in the back, which is a lot more manageable. Oftentimes, my Vigoroth safe switch can bait out theirs. Opponent will have to throw energy, and they will do just that. And now, I could potentially decide to let this through, but I decide that I do want to try and get a lower shielding situation and get one more counter through onto their Vigoroth. So, I do decide to play it to the ones, and I'm going to send in Greedent. Greedent can absorb the energy here. Opponent goes for a Rock Slide, and now I can aggressively switch into the Girafarig. Again, this team doesn't really have a very linear play pattern whatsoever. It's more so just getting energy on Girafarig when you can. Girafarig, farming up. I just get outpaced to the Trailblaze, which is a little unfortunate. However, they're low enough now that I can probably just go for the Psychic Fangs. I'm at back-to-back Psychic Fangs. So I believe a shielded Trailblaze is the lose con here, so I will go for the Psychic Fangs. They shield, and now I can just go for another Psychic Fangs. And this is just going to be goodbye to the Quagsire. In the back, they have Pidgeot, and it's the normal Pidgeot, so they don't have Aerial Ace. If they had Aerial Ace, they could outpace, and that would be problematic, but they don't. Psychic Fangs lands, aggressive switch into the Greedent, and I can go for the Body Slam. That is a guaranteed winning play to switch into the Greedent. The only way they can negate the energy is by Brave Birding, and if they Brave Bird, I can just Confusion down with the Giraffe. We've got the battle of Confusion users, Shadow Girafarig versus Wormadam. As with most matchups, I'm throwing a Confusion and switching out. The ability for Shadow Girafarig to have that energy lead later in the game is just incredibly powerful in this format. I landed the Rock Slide, it does quite a lot of damage, and now they're already in a range where I could probably get rid of it with the Girafarig. They stay in, they go for the Bug Buzz, I'm able to make another Rock Slide, and I think this can actually KO. The Rock Slide barely does not KO, and they send in Diggersby. Diggersby is very bulky. It's one of the few things that I actually can't just Confusion Psychic Fang spam with Girafarig. So, since I can't use Girafarig, I'm just going to send in the Greedent, and let's start ramping up its damage with Trailblaze. Trailblaze will be no shielded, and now they have to deal with a +1 Greedent. They can fire off into the Scorching Sands, but it's not going to be enough to knock out. They go for the Scorching Sands, but they do get the attack drop, and that's very unfortunate. I'm just going to go for a Body Slam now. Body Slam is going to be shielded. Oh, they do not like Greedent in the back. That's a very interesting shield. I'm now going to fire off the super effective Trailblaze. They double shield, and this is quite interesting. I have a choice to make. Do I want a shield? Nah, I'm saving 2 shields for the Shadow Girafarig. Shadow Girafarig, just too powerful with an energy lead and shield advantage. I'm going to commit the shield, hoping against hope that they don't get the debuff with Scorching Sands. They do get the debuff. They try and catch on the Wormadam, but they're unsuccessful. In the back, it's a Rangaroo, and this is where Trailblaze is so deadly. I am debuffed, so the Trailblaze is not going to do a lot, but I can reset my attack back to normal. They'll go for the foul play, and now I'm just going to go for another Trailblaze. This Trailblaze is going to do some pretty nice damage and put me at +1 attack. The Trailblaze will connect. My Girafarig farms down a Rangaroo, and this is just game over for the Diggersby. They send in the Diggersby. I could have gone for the Psychic Fangs, but I wanted to keep boosting my attack. I'm going for the Trailblaze. Down goes Diggersby, and this boosted Girafarig is just absolutely crushing teams. My goodness. Next match, Shadow Girafarig versus Skeledirge. I save switch into Vigoroth. Here, I believe I should have done 2 Confusions and switched out, but I only did 1. They're going to go for the Disarming Voice, and they're staying in with the Skeledirge, which is quite interesting. I will fire off the Rock Slide. The Rock Slide gets shielded, so it seems like they do not want to see Vigoroth in the back. I make the Rock Slide, losing charge attack priority, and now I have a choice to make. I decide to let the Vigoroth go and instead send in Girafarig. Girafarig unable to make the move because I only did 1 Confusion at the start instead of 2. They're going to switch out into a Shadow Credilli. That's a pretty cool Pokemon. I have not seen that basically at all in this meta. I Psychic Fangs, and then I switch into the Greedent. Greedent is going to be hit with a charge attack from Credilli. Credilli is going to fire off the Grass Knot, and that does quite a lot of damage from a Shadow Credilli. My goodness. I go for the Trailblaze. Their defense has already been debuffed, so Trailblaze will be able to KO. Back in comes the Skeledirge. My attack is boosted. I'm only able to make it to a Body Slam though. This is double resisted. Body Slam not going to be enough to KO, and they're barely able to hang on and make it to a last second Disarming Voice. Disarming Voice Oh no, it is going to pick up the KO, and they have a Ferrothorn in the back. And this is where having extra energy on the Girafarig earlier in the game potentially could have been game-winning for me. As now, I'm going to keep firing off these Psychic Fangs, but look at this. Off purely resisted damage, Girafarig is shredding this Pokemon, but I'm one confusion short of the game-winning Psychic Fangs. If I did that one confusion at the start and switched, I win this game purely off resisted damage against the Ferrothorn, but unfortunately, I am one confusion short, and the game does end in a loss. Hopping into the final match, Shadow Girafarig versus Swampert, one confusion and a switch to Vigoroth. They go for the Hydro Cannon. That is so okay for me. Hydro Cannon will connect. They are not switching out, which is a pretty massive surprise. I throw 3 counters, wait a turn to make sure they don't catch, and go for the Body Slam. Body Slam is no shielded. They're farming up, but they only farm up 3. This is important. This means they're 2 off the Hydro Cannon. And if they're 2 off the Hydro Cannon, guess who can just delete them with a Giraffe? Now I have a Girafarig at basically full health, and I have a big energy lead. They send in Credilli. I'm going to fire off the Psychic Fangs. That does some nice damage, and they're going to be firing off a move. I will commit the shield. Proper timing in this matchup is going to be 2 confusions and the move, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. And this Credilli is just getting melted by confusions. This Pokemon is absolutely absurd. Another confusion goes through. I'm shielding, and whatever they have in back, I don't care. I'm debuffing it. In the back, they have Emolga, and Emolga's about to get cooked here. Emolga is not tanky. Look at the confusions and the catch as well. Catching onto the Greedent. Discharge, not going to do basically anything, and now I can just look to farm up with the Greedent. I will overfarm and fire off the Body Slam. Body Slam is going to do a ton of damage to the debuffed Emolga. Emolga playing to charge attack priority. They need the Acrobatics to pick up the KO, and by throwing the Acrobatics, they now no longer can make a move versus Girafarig. Girafarig farms down Emolga and Credilli, and that is a good game. All in all, I left after these battles feeling extremely impressed with Shadow Girafarig. One area where I do think the team struggles is against a Vigoroth lead. I think I only saw maybe one Vigoroth lead during these sets, but it did prove to be very uncomfortable as Vigoroth is able to outpace the Girafarig, and switching out oftentimes leaves the Vigoroth with an awkward amount of health in the endgame. So, as I continue to play this team, I'm going to look for different ways to play out that Vigoroth lead to see if I can get better results. But overall, against the non-Vigoroth leads, I feel like the team performed amazingly well. Vigoroth is just so safe as a safe switch, and Greedent is incredibly good at shutting down the Mudboys with Trailblaze, and the Shadow Girafarig, as long as you can very effectively manage your energy, like that one confusion and switch out strat, even in bad matchups, is just so good, because being able to outpace basically everything in the format with the one confusion head start means that Shadow Girafarig can just completely overrun teams in the endgame. Like, we saw a lot of teams where they just didn't know what to shield, and in doing so, Shadow Girafarig just absolutely dominated. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys, always very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.